The worst part about having an autoimmune disease isn't the pain, it's knowing that at any moment your body might decide to turn against you. That's exactly what happened last Tuesday when I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My name is Heidi, and I've spent the last decade learning to live with my condition. The fatigue hit first, then the fever, and finally the joint pain that made even holding my phone feel like lifting weights. I called in sick to work and crawled back into bed, grateful that I'd always been smart enough to prepare for days like these. Or so I thought. The doorbell rang around noon. I ignored it, but then came the incessant knocking. Through my bedroom window, I spotted my brother Dalton's Range Rover in the driveway. "Heidi, open up! I know you're home!" he shouted through the door. I dragged myself out of bed, wrapped in my comforter, and shuffled to let him in. "I'm sick, Dalton. What do you want?" He breezed past me, reeking of expensive cologne. "You look terrible," he said, settling himself on my couch like he owned it. "Thanks. That's exactly what every girl wants to hear." I collapsed into the adjacent armchair, already exhausted from the short walk. "Listen, I need a favor," he started, fidgeting with his designer watch, probably another gift for himself he couldn't afford. "Scarlett's birthday is coming up, and I found the perfect present, but I'm a little short." I cut him off. "No. You haven't even heard how much—" The answer is still no. "I'm not your personal ATM, Dalton." He leaned forward, eyes pleading. "Come on, sis. You've got all that money just sitting there. What's the point of having it if you're not going to use it?" "It's my emergency fund. For medical emergencies, which I'm literally having right now." "But family should help family," he insisted, using the same guilt trip our parents had perfected over the years. I closed my eyes, fighting both the pain and the anger. "Get out. I'm too sick for this." He left in a huff, but not before muttering something about me being selfish. I didn't think much of it then. I was used to his tantrums when he didn't get his way. 3 days later, still recovering, I opened my banking app to pay some bills. My heart stopped. The balance that should have shown 6 figures was 0. Not low, not overdrawn. 0. My hands shaking, I called the bank. After 30 minutes of being transferred around, I heard the words that made my blood run cold. "The funds were withdrawn yesterday by an authorized user." I immediately called Dalton. He picked up on the 3rd ring, music blasting in the background. "Oh, hey, sis. You'll never guess what. Scarlett loves her new car." The room started spinning. "What did you do?" "Don't worry, I left the paperwork on Mom and Dad's kitchen table. They agreed you'd want to help. Scarlett's been dying for a convertible, and you should see how happy she is. I posted pictures on Instagram if you want to." I hung up before he could finish. My vision blurred as panic set in. That money wasn't just savings. It was my lifeline. My protection against the next major flare-up, the next hospitalization, the next experimental treatment my insurance wouldn't cover. My phone buzzed with a text from our mother. "We're coming over. We need to talk about your attitude toward family." They arrived 20 minutes later, my father's face red with anger, my mother wearing her practiced look of disappointment. "Young lady," my father started as soon as I opened the door, "this behavior is unacceptable. Your brother came to us in tears because you're threatening him over a simple loan." "A loan?" I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "He stole my entire emergency fund." "He did not steal anything," my mother cut in. "He had access to the account, and family helps family. You've always been so selfish with your money, Heidi, always hoarding it away while your brother struggles." I let them continue their tirade, watching as they defended their precious son, their golden child who could do no wrong. They had no idea what was coming. No idea that the account they thought they knew about wasn't just a simple savings account. "Are you even listening?" my father demanded, his voice rising. "This is exactly why we had to take matters into our own hands. You never think about anyone but yourself." I smiled then, a small, cold smile that made them both pause. "You're right. I should have mentioned something important about that account. Would you like to know what it is? Tell me you didn't just let them walk into this, Robert said, pinching the bridge of his nose. My lawyer had rushed to meet me at his office first thing in the morning, coffee growing cold on his desk as he reviewed the documentation. Oh, I absolutely did, I replied, my voice hoarse from a night of barely sleeping. Just like you told me to do if anyone ever tried to access the trust without proper authorization. He nodded, pulling out a thick folder. Let's review what we set up 3 years ago, shall we? After that incident with your parents trying to borrow money for Dalton's failed startup, the memory made me wince. That had been my wake-up call. Watching my parents try to emotionally blackmail me into investing my savings into my brother's half-baked business idea. It was what had led me to Robert's office in the first place. The trust we created, Robert continued, is what we call an irrevocable spendthrift trust. You're both the grantor and the primary beneficiary. The terms are explicit. Funds can only be withdrawn for medical expenses or with your written, notarized consent. Which I definitely didn't give, I said. Exactly. He pulled out more papers. I've already contacted the bank's fraud department. They're launching an investigation into how the withdrawal was processed. Initial findings suggest forged documents were used. My phone buzzed. Another text from Dalton. Mom says being dramatic. It's just money. You can save more. I showed the message to Robert, who shook his head. They really don't understand what they've done, do they? No, I replied. They think it's just a regular account they had access to because I once added Dalton as an authorized user on a different account years ago. Robert's assistant knocked and entered with a stack of papers. The bank just sent these over. You'll want to see this, sir. Robert scanned the documents, his eyebrows rising. Well, it seems your brother didn't just forge your signature. He created fake medical documentation to justify the withdrawal. That moves this from civil fraud into criminal territory. What happens now? The bank has already frozen the car loan and is preparing to repossess the vehicle. They're also required by law to report this level of fraud to the authorities. He looked at me seriously. Heidi, your brother could face serious charges. Are you prepared for that? I thought about all the times I'd covered for Dalton, all the times I'd given in to my parents' guilt trips, all the times I'd put my own health at risk because my emergency fund had been drained by their family emergencies. Yes, I said firmly. I am. My phone rang. It was my best friend, Melina. Have you seen Instagram? She asked without preamble. Scarlett's posting photos of herself with the car. The caption says, "When your man knows your worth." Sorry to all the jealous haters who hoard money for no reason. Screenshot everything, Robert instructed, having heard through the speakerphone. We'll want documentation of how the stolen funds were used. Already done, Melina replied. I've got screenshots of Dalton's post too. He's bragging about being the kind of boyfriend who makes dreams come true. Robert started typing on his computer. Perfect. The more evidence they provide of knowingly spending fraudulently obtained funds, the stronger our case becomes. Just then, my phone lit up with a call from my mother. I let it go to voicemail. They're going to start panicking soon, Robert said, still typing. The bank will be sending formal notices today. When they realize this isn't just about family drama, but actual legal consequences. He was interrupted by his office phone ringing. After a brief conversation, he turned to me with a slight smile. That was the bank's legal department. They've initiated repossession proceedings for the vehicle. Given the nature of the fraud, they're expediting the process. How long until they know? The certified letters should arrive tomorrow. The repossession team has been authorized to act immediately. He paused. Are you sure you want to go through with this? Once the criminal investigation starts, there's no turning back. I thought about my brother's smug face when he told me about the car, about my parents' accusations of selfishness, about lying in bed during a flare-up, wondering if I'd be able to afford treatment now. They made their choice, I said quietly. Now they get to live with the consequences. Robert nodded and picked up his phone. I'll notify our litigation team to proceed. He looked at me with concern. You should prepare yourself. When they realize what's really happening, when they understand what that account actually was, they're going to explode, I finished for him. I know. But for once, I'm the one holding all the cards. My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. It was Scarlett. Thanks for the car, sis. Maybe now you can stop being such a miser and learn to share. Family first, right? I showed it to Robert, who added it to his growing file of evidence. The court is going to love this, he said grimly. The family dinner invitation arrived via my mother's usual passive-aggressive text. Sunday dinner, 6 p.m. Your presence is required. We need to discuss your recent behavior as a family. I showed the message to Melina, who was helping me document the growing social media spectacle of Dalton and Scarlett's luxury car adventures. You're not actually going, are you? She asked, scrolling through yet another photo of Scarlett posing on the convertible's hood. Oh, I'm definitely going, I replied. I want to be there when they get the news. Sunday evening, I pulled up to my parents' house just as Dalton and Scarlett were getting out of my stolen money on wheels. Scarlett's designer purse probably cost more than my entire wardrobe. Oh my God, you actually came! Scarlett squealed, air kissing my cheeks. I was just telling Dalton how we should totally take you shopping sometime. You know, help you live a little? I smiled tightly. How thoughtful. Inside, my mother was putting on her usual show of Sunday dinner perfection. The good china was out, wine was breathing, and the forced civility was thick enough to cut with a knife. Heidi, my father said from his position at the head of the table, I trust you've had time to reflect on your recent outburst. I've been doing a lot of reflecting, I said, accepting a glass of wine from my mother. It's been quite educational. Dalton lounged in his chair, arm draped around Scarlett. See? I knew she'd come around. Family always does. Speaking of family, Scarlett chimed in, we should totally do a family photo shoot with the car. I know this amazing photographer. That sounds wonderful, my mother interrupted, bringing out the roast. Heidi, dear, would you say grace? I bowed my head with the others, fighting back a smirk as I thought about the certified letters that would arrive tomorrow morning. Throughout dinner, I watched them bask in their perceived victory. My mother kept making pointed comments about generosity and family bonds. My father talked about his golf game. Dalton and Scarlett couldn't stop discussing their plans for the car. My phone vibrated silently in my pocket. A text from Melina. Bank confirmed. Letters delivered tomorrow a.m. Repo team on standby. Everything okay, sweetie? My mother asked, noticing my phone. You seem distracted. Just work, I lied smoothly. Actually, that reminds me, how's the new job going, Dalton? He puffed up immediately. Amazing. The boss loves me, talking about fast-tracking me to management. That's wonderful, I said, taking a sip of wine. It's important to have a stable income. You never know when you might need it. My father beamed. That's what we've been saying. Dalton's really coming into his own, making bold moves, taking initiative. Speaking of bold moves, Scarlett interrupted, pulling out her phone. Look at how many likes my car post got. People are literally dying of jealousy. I watched as she showed everyone her latest Instagram post, a sunset photo of her in the convertible, caption reading, living my best life with the most generous family. Some people save for a rainy day, but we make our own sunshine. My mother touched my arm. See, honey, this is what family means. Supporting each other, sharing blessings. I know you've been protective of your savings, but isn't this better? Seeing your brother so happy? I checked my phone again. 9:47 p.m. In less than 12 hours, their perfect little world would shatter. You know what? I said, standing up. You're right, Mom. Everything happens for a reason. Oh, sweetie. She looked ready to cry with joy. I knew you'd understand eventually. I do understand, more than you know. I gathered my things. I should head home. Early meeting tomorrow. But we haven't had dessert, my father protested. Rain check, I said, unable to resist the pun. I have a feeling tomorrow's going to be a busy day. As I walked to my car, Scarlett called out after me, "Thanks again, sis. We should totally do lunch sometime." I waved without turning around, got in my car, and called Melina. "How was it?" she asked. "Like watching people celebrate on the deck of the Titanic," I replied, pulling out of the driveway. "They have no idea what's coming." "The bank confirmed the letters will arrive first thing tomorrow. Robert says the repo team is ready. Are you sure you don't want to warn them?" I thought about Scarlett's smug posts, about Dalton's entitled attitude, about my parents' years of enabling and guilt-tripping. "No," I said firmly. "Let them enjoy their last night of pretending they did nothing wrong. Tomorrow, they learn what happens when you mistake kindness for weakness." "Your mom's going to open that letter and freak out," Melina warned. "Good," I replied, turning onto the main road. "It's about time someone in this family had a reality check. I just never thought I'd be the one delivering it." The first call came at 8:47 a.m. I let it go to voicemail. Then another. And another. By 9:15, I had 17 missed calls from my parents and 23 text messages from Dalton. I was sitting in Robert's office when my mother's hysteria finally broke through via text. "What have you done? How could you do this to your brother?" "They got the letters," I told Robert, who was reviewing the bank's formal complaint. "Right on schedule," he replied. "Should we expect them to—" The office door burst open. My father stormed in, face purple with rage, waving papers. My mother followed, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Dalton skulked behind them, looking considerably less confident than he had at dinner. "A trust," my father roared. "You set up a goddamn trust?" Robert stood. "Mr. and Mrs. Stay out of this," my father snapped. "This is family business." "Actually," Robert said calmly, "as the legal executor of Heidi's trust, I'm very much involved in this business. Please, sit down." "Heidi, baby," my mother pleaded, ignoring the chairs. "This is just a misunderstanding. We can fix this. Just call off these horrible bank people." "The bank people who are coming for the car?" I asked. "Or the bank people who are pressing criminal charges for fraud?" Dalton stepped forward. "Criminal charges? Come on, sis, that's crazy. I had account access." "No," I corrected him. "You had access to my checking account years ago. This was a separate trust, specifically set up to protect my medical fund, which you accessed by forging documents." "Forging?" my mother gasped. "Dalton wouldn't—" Robert pulled out a file. "We have copies of the falsified medical documents and the forged signatures used to access the trust. Would you like to see them?" My father's face went from purple to white. "This is ridiculous. We're your family." "Exactly," I said, standing up. "You're my family. You knew about my condition. You knew that money was for medical emergencies, and you still helped Dalton steal it for a car." "We didn't steal anything," Dalton protested. "Mom and Dad said it was fine." "They had no authority to approve anything," Robert interjected. "The trust was explicitly set up to prevent unauthorized access after the last time they tried to appropriate Heidi's medical funds." My mother collapsed into a chair. "The last time? What last time?" 2 years ago, I reminded her, when you and Dad tried to convince me to invest in Dalton's cryptocurrency scheme. Remember? You said I was being selfish for refusing to help him start his business. That was different," she stammered. "Was it? Because it looks exactly the same from where I'm standing. You've always treated my emergency fund like Dalton's backup plan." A commotion in the hallway interrupted us. Scarlett burst in, her perfect makeup not hiding her panic. "The car! They're taking the car!" "As per standard procedure in cases of fraud," Robert explained, "the vehicle was purchased with stolen funds." "Stolen?" Scarlett whirled on Dalton. "You said it was a gift from your sister." "It was," Dalton insisted. "Sort of. I mean, technically," Robert cut in. "It was grand theft and fraud. The trust agreement explicitly states that any unauthorized access will result in both civil and criminal charges. Criminal charges? My father exploded. You'd send your own brother to jail? I met his gaze steadily. You raised me to understand that actions have consequences, Dad. Or does that only apply when I'm the one you're punishing? Please, my mother begged. We can work this out. As a family, we're past that, I said quietly. The trust agreement was clear. Dalton chose to ignore it. You chose to help him. Now you all get to live with those choices. Scarlett was scrolling frantically through her phone. The bank froze the car loan. They're saying I might be liable for conspiracy to commit fraud. This is going to ruin my social media career. Your career, Dalton sputtered. What about my job? My life? Both of which you should have considered, Robert said, before committing federal fraud. My father slumped in his chair, the fight draining from him. How much? He asked. How much to make this go away? It doesn't work like that anymore, I told him. This isn't like when I was a kid and you could just order me to give Dalton my savings. The trust has specific legal requirements, and you all violated them. But we're family, my mother whispered. Yes, I agreed, and family should protect each other, not steal their medical safety net for a convertible. My phone buzzed. A text from Melina. Car's been repossessed. Police want to interview Dalton tomorrow. I showed the message to Robert, who nodded and pulled out another stack of papers. Now, he said to my shell-shocked family, shall we discuss exactly how serious this situation is? The police station's fluorescent lights made everyone look sickly, especially Dalton. He sat in the interview room, staring at the stack of papers the detective had placed in front of him. I watched through the one-way glass, Robert standing beside me. These are copies of the documents you submitted to access the trust, the detective explained. Can you explain how you obtained your sister's medical records? Dalton glanced at his lawyer, a rushed hire by my parents. I downloaded some forms from the internet. And the signature? Did you forge that as well? I had account access, Dalton protested weakly. His lawyer leaned in. Detective, my client was under the impression he had authorization. Your client, the detective interrupted, created fake medical documents, forged signatures, and stole over $100,000. That's not a misunderstanding. That's premeditated fraud. Through the glass, I watched my brother deflate. Gone was the cocky attitude, the entitled smirk. Reality was finally sinking in. My phone buzzed. A series of texts from Scarlett. This is all your fault. The bank is investigating me now. My followers are unfollowing me because of this drama. I can't believe you're doing this to your own family. The last message included a screenshot of her social media accounts hemorrhaging followers as the story spread. Robert checked his phone too. The bank's fraud department wants to interview Scarlett. They found some interesting patterns in her social media history. Similar situations with other boyfriends and their family's money. Of course they did, I muttered. The interview room door opened and my parents rushed in, ignoring the detective's protests. You have to drop the charges, my mother pleaded, looking at me through the glass even though she couldn't see me. He's your brother. Mrs., the detective started, but my father cut him off. This is destroying our family. Is that what you want, Heidi? I pressed the intercom button. What I wanted was to keep my medical funds safe. What I wanted was a family that respected boundaries. Please, Dalton said, his voice cracking. I'll pay it back. I promise. Robert stepped forward. Actually, we've prepared an offer. He slid a document through to the detective, who passed it to Dalton and his lawyer. Full restitution, Robert explained, including legal fees and bank penalties, plus a public statement admitting to the theft and fraud. In exchange, we'll consider not pursuing maximum criminal charges. Public statement? My mother gasped. But what will people think? They'll think, I said through the intercom, that actions have consequences. Dalton's lawyer reviewed the document. This is actually quite generous, considering the circumstances. I advise you to accept. But my job, Dalton whimpered, my reputation. Should have thought about that before stealing from your chronically ill sister, the detective remarked dryly. My phone buzzed again. More texts from Scarlett. Dalton just dumped me by text. How dare he blame me for this? I'm suing everyone. Robert showed me his screen, an email from the bank's fraud department. They found evidence that Scarlett knew about the fraud beforehand. She's being added to the investigation. In the interview room, Dalton was signing the agreement with trembling hands. My mother was sobbing quietly. My father stared at the floor, his authority and bluster finally shattered. The detective gathered the papers. The DA will still want to pursue criminal charges. This agreement just means we'll recommend leniency. Leniency? My father looked up. What's the maximum sentence? For this level of fraud, 5 to 10 years. With this agreement and no prior record, probably probation and mandatory restitution payments. The detective paused. But he'll still have a criminal record. My mother turned to the glass again. Heidi, please, we're begging you. I pressed the intercom one last time. You know what I remember? When I was diagnosed, you told me that I had to be strong, that I had to face reality and deal with the consequences of my condition. Well, now it's Dalton's turn to face reality and deal with the consequences of his choices. But he's your brother, she whispered. Yes, I agreed. And I'm your daughter, the one you were supposed to protect, the one whose medical fund you helped steal. Funny how that works, isn't it? I turned to Robert. We're done here. As we walked out of the police station, my phone lit up with one final text from Scarlett. I hope you're happy. You've ruined everything. I showed it to Robert, who added it to his evidence file. Actually, I replied, typing my first and last response to her, I'm just getting started. Then I blocked her number and walked into the sunlight, leaving my family to face the storm they'd created. The Reddit post went viral within hours. I hadn't planned on sharing the story, but after seeing Scarlett's tearful Instagram apology video where she painted herself as the victim, something in me snapped. My brother stole my medical emergency fund to buy his girlfriend a luxury car, the post began. Now they're facing fraud charges, and my family is calling me the villain. Melina called me at work. Have you seen how many upvotes your post has? It's trending on multiple subreddits. I was about to respond when my email pinged, a message from Dalton's employer. Ms. Whitney, we've become aware of certain legal issues involving your brother. Given the nature of his position in financial services, we're placing him on immediate administrative leave pending investigation. They're suspending him, I told Melina. Apparently, fraud charges don't look good when you work in banking. Hold on, she said. Someone just linked Scarlett's old Twitter account. Oh my God, Heidi, you need to see this. I pulled up the thread. Someone had dug up Scarlett's posts from the past 3 years, documenting a pattern. Different boyfriends, different expensive gifts, same sudden disappearance when the money ran out. Looking for my next adventure, she'd posted just 2 months before meeting Dalton. Tired of boys who can't provide the lifestyle I deserve, the internet did what it does best. It connected the dots. Within hours, 3 of Scarlett's ex-boyfriends had come forward with similar stories. One had lost his college fund. Another's parents had remortgaged their house. My phone rang. My mother. Do you know what you've done? She hissed. It's everywhere. The country club is buzzing. The neighbors are talking. Your father can barely show his face at work. Funny, I replied. I don't remember you being this concerned when I was bedridden last month. That's different. This is our family's reputation. No, Mom, this is consequences. A text from Robert interrupted us. Scarlett's previous victims are filing police reports. The DA is very interested. My mother was still ranting. You have to take that post down. People are sharing screenshots of Dalton's Instagram posts about the car. They're calling him horrible names. His own posts, Mom, his own words, his own actions. But another call beeped in. Scarlett's lawyer. I switched over. Miss Whitney, my client demands you cease and desist from spreading defamatory. Everything in that post is documented fact, I interrupted. Bank records, police reports, social media posts. Would you like me to share more? Like the texts where your client bragged about spending my medical fund? Silence. That's what I thought. I hung up and checked Reddit again. Someone had created a timeline of Scarlett's relationships, complete with photos of expensive gifts and subsequent bankruptcies. The pattern was undeniable. My father tried next, leaving a voicemail. You've gone too far. This public shaming, it's beneath our family. If you don't fix this, don't bother coming home for Christmas. I forwarded the message to Robert, who replied immediately, focus on your health. Let them deal with their shame. Melina sent me a link to a local news website. They were running a story. Social media influencer and boyfriend face fraud charges in medical fund theft. Below it was a photo from Scarlett's Instagram, her posing on the now repossessed convertible, caption still visible. When you have a man who knows your worth. The comments were brutal. My phone buzzed again. Dalton, using our mother's phone since I'd blocked his. They put me on leave without pay. My apartment complex saw the news and they're not renewing my lease. This is all your fault. I typed back. No, this is what accountability looks like. Melina called again. Scarlett just posted a new video. She's crying about being cyberbullied and how she had no idea the money was stolen. The comments are not sympathetic. Screenshot everything, I said. Robert wants to build a pattern of deception for the DA. A final text came through. From my mother. People at church are asking questions. The charity board is considering asking me to step down. How could you humiliate us like this? I stared at her message, thinking about all the times they'd humiliated me. All the times they'd dismissed my illness as dramatic. All the times they'd pressured me to give Dalton money I needed for medical care. I didn't humiliate you, I wrote back. You did that all on your own. I just made sure everyone could see it. Then I turned off my phone, made some tea, and watched as justice played out in real time across social media. Sometimes I realized the best revenge isn't just about legal victories. It's about letting people's own actions speak for themselves. And right now, their actions were speaking volumes. The courthouse hallway felt colder than it should have in September. I sat on the hard wooden bench, watching my parents huddle with Dalton and his lawyer outside the courtroom. They hadn't looked at me once. All rise. Inside, the judge peered over her glasses at Dalton, who stood trembling in his ill-fitting suit. His designer clothes had been sold weeks ago to start paying restitution. Mr. Whitney, the judge began, you stand accused of fraud, theft, and forgery. The DA informs me a plea agreement has been reached. Dalton's lawyer stepped forward. Yes, Your Honor. My client agrees to plead guilty to all charges in exchange for a suspended sentence with probation, contingent on full restitution. Very well. The judge turned to Dalton. Do you understand that this will result in a permanent criminal record? Yes, Your Honor, he whispered. And you understand that any violation of probation, including failure to make restitution payments, will result in immediate imprisonment. Yes, Your Honor. The judge shuffled some papers. I see the victim wishes to make a statement. I stood, unfolding the paper I'd prepared, but looking at my family, my mother's tears, my father's rigid back, Dalton's defeated slump, I set it aside. Your Honor, I began, I've lived with an autoimmune condition since I was 18. Every day, I wake up not knowing if my body will betray me. That medical fund wasn't just money. It was my safety net, my protection against the next flare-up, the next hospitalization. I turned to face my family directly. When I was diagnosed, you told me I had to be strong, that I had to learn to take care of myself because no one else would. So I did. I worked while sick. I saved every penny. I planned for emergencies because that's what responsible adults do. My mother stifled a sob. But you never saw me as responsible, did you? You saw me as selfish for not funding Dalton's schemes, for not emptying my medical fund every time he wanted something, for having boundaries. I faced the judge again. The money they stole wasn't for a vacation or a luxury purchase. It was for keeping me alive. They knew that. They just didn't care. The judge nodded slowly. And what outcome do you seek today? I want my brother to understand that actions have consequences, that family isn't a get-out-of-jail-free card, that my health and safety matter just as much as his wants. The courtroom was silent except for my mother's quiet crying. Mr. Whitney, the judge addressed Dalton, approached the bench. Dalton shuffled forward. I've been on this bench for 20 years, she said. I've seen every kind of theft imaginable, but stealing a chronically ill person's medical fund? That shows a level of callousness that disturbs me deeply. She leaned forward. I accept your plea agreement, but with additional conditions. You will perform 1,000 hours of community service at medical facilities. You will attend financial responsibility counseling. You will make restitution payments of 60% of your income until the full amount, plus penalties, is repaid. And you will have no contact with the victim unless she initiates it. My father started to protest, but was silenced by his lawyer. Furthermore, the judge continued, any violation of these terms will result in immediate imprisonment. Do you understand? Yes, Your Honor, Dalton mumbled. Miss Whitney, she turned to me, the court acknowledges your loss and trauma. The restraining order against Ms. Allen will remain in effect, and your medical fund will be restored through restitution payments. Do you accept these terms? Yes, Your Honor. As we filed out of the courtroom, reporters waited in the hallway. Cameras flashed as Dalton was led past them, head down. Heidi, my mother called out. Please, can't we talk about this? I turned to face them one last time. For years, you taught Dalton that he could take whatever he wanted from me, that my needs didn't matter, that family meant I had to sacrifice everything while he sacrificed nothing. I stepped back. Well, congratulations. Those lessons finally caught up with all of you. But we're still your parents, my father said stiffly. No, I replied. You're the people who helped steal my medical fund and then called me selfish for pressing charges. I don't need parents like that. Robert appeared at my side. Your restitution payments will begin next week, he told them. I suggest you focus on that rather than attempting further contact. As we walked away, I heard my mother's voice echo down the hallway. What will people think? I smiled slightly, remembering all the times they'd used that phrase to control me. They'll think exactly what they should, I said quietly, that actions have consequences, even for family. Outside, the autumn sun felt warm on my face. For the first time in weeks, my autoimmune symptoms were quiet. Sometimes I realized cutting out toxicity is the best medicine of all. The notification from my banking app pinged during lunch with Melina. Restitution payment received, it read. The balance of my medical fund was finally restored, with interest. So that's it? Melina asked, stirring her coffee. The final payment? According to Robert. I showed her the statement. Dalton actually got a second job to pay it off faster. Apparently, working at the medical clinic for his community service changed something in him. My phone buzzed. A text from Robert. Just received an interesting proposal from your brother's lawyer. He's asking if you'd consider meeting with him. Your choice entirely. Melina raised an eyebrow. Are you going to do it? Before I could answer, my social media notifications exploded. Scarlett had resurfaced, this time in Dubai, posting about her fresh start and leaving toxic people behind. The comments were ruthless, filled with links to news articles about her fraud cases. Karma really does come full circle, Melina mused. I typed back to Robert. Where and when? The coffee shop was quiet for a Tuesday afternoon. Dalton sat at a corner table, wearing the uniform from his second job at a local diner. No designer clothes, no expensive watch, no entitled attitude. Hey, he said softly as I sat down. Hey. He pushed a folder across the table. My latest medical clinic shift. There was this kid, 14, type 1 diabetes. Her parents lost their insurance and she was rationing insulin. I opened the folder. Inside was documentation for a new charitable trust. I took all my savings, he continued. What's left of my investments? Everything. I want to set up a fund for kids with chronic conditions who can't afford treatment. But he hesitated. I need help doing it right, legally, properly. Why? Because you were right. About everything. About me, about mom and dad, about consequences. He ran a hand through his hair. That kid reminded me of you at that age. How scared you were when you got diagnosed. How hard you worked to protect yourself. While I just took. My phone buzzed. A message from our mother. Please call us. We miss you. I showed it to Dalton. They still don't get it, do they? No, he agreed. They're still more worried about appearances than actions. But I get it now, finally. He pulled out more papers. I've been researching autoimmune conditions, talking to patients at the clinic. Did you know most people drain their life savings within 2 years of diagnosis? I know, I said quietly. That's why I fought so hard to protect mine. I want to help fix that. Not to make up for what I did. I know I can't. But because it's right. He looked at me directly. Will you help me set it up? Make sure it's bulletproof, like your trust was? I studied him for a long moment. The entitled brother who'd stolen my medical fund was gone, replaced by someone who finally understood the weight of consequences. I'll call Robert, I said, but I have conditions. Anything. The trust operates independently. No family interference, no guilt trips, no borrowing funds. Agreed. And you keep working at the clinic even after your community service ends. These kids need advocates who understand the system. He nodded. I already asked about a permanent position in patient advocacy. My phone buzzed again. Our father this time. The country club board asked about you. When can we tell them you're coming back to the family? I showed Dalton the message. He shook his head. They still think this is about reputation, about their social standing. It never was, I said. It was about respect, boundaries, understanding that my health wasn't their ATM. I know that now. He pulled out one final document. That's why I added this clause. The trust will prioritize patients whose families have tried to exploit their medical funds. Give them protection I should have given you. I read through the clause. It was comprehensive, specific, and clearly written by someone who'd learned the hard way about financial abuse. Okay, I said finally. I'll help. Not for you, not for them, but for those kids. That's all I'm asking for. As we left the coffee shop, another text came through, from Melina. Remember when you said karma pays dividends? Looks like you're collecting interest on that too. I looked back at Dalton, heading to his shift at the diner in his non-designer clothes, carrying the weight of his actions, but finally doing something meaningful with them. You know what? I typed back to Melina. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about making sure what happened to you helps prevent it from happening to someone else. I blocked my parents' numbers, pocketed my phone, and headed to Robert's office. There were trust documents to draft, protections to put in place, and futures to secure. After all, karma doesn't just pay dividends, it funds futures too.